Hello and welcome to Level Up Your Life. I am Mark Black, transplant recipient turned 4-time marathon runner, entrepreneur, and coach. Each week on this show, we bring you strategies, concepts, and tactics to help you take your work, your health, and your relationships to the next level. It's time to begin. Let's get ready to level up. Another live edition of Level Up Your Life. This is the podcast where we help you take your work, your life, your health, and your relationships to the next level. And we have just started in the last couple of weeks broadcasting it live as we record it, and then it comes out in the podcast on Mondays. We're doing it live right here, right now. So if you're with us live, make sure you tap that screen. If you're on Instagram, let us know that you like this. Share this with your friends so that more people find the podcast. And then you can listen to the complete edited version of the show on Monday if you subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. So listen, in today's episode, I want to give you some strategies to help you and help all of us deal with lockdown, shutdown, quarantine, COVID-19, everything that's going on in the world right now. You know, there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of difficult things going on. There's a lot of people struggling. The negative consequences of what are happening right now are very, very real. And none of what I'm going to say today negates that. We absolutely acknowledge that that's happening. But what I want to suggest to you is that there are some things that we can do as individuals and certainly as a society to make the situation better. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. The 3 ideas I have for you are about a new kind of SEO. You've maybe heard that term before. If you haven't, it's a computer term talking about search engine optimization, how you can get found online. This is a different kind of SEO, and it stands for sacrifice, empathy, and optimism. And I think right now, we as a world need to emphasize those 3 things. And we as individuals can help lead the way in doing that. And if you're part of this Level Up community, I know you're one of the people who are out there doing that already. I want to just encourage you to keep doing it. So we're going to examine these 3 concepts, talk about how you can use them and exhibit them in your daily life and then out there in the world or out to the world from in here, as the case may be, because we're all in lockdown. And so the first thing is talking about sacrifice. Sacrifice is a dirty word for a lot of us, right? We don't like that idea. It sounds very negative. That term has a very negative connotation to it. We associate it with losing things or having things taken away from us or of pain. And there's an element of those things to that word, but ultimately, sacrifice doesn't need to be negative at all. In fact, if you think about many of the things in your life that you value, many of the things that you enjoy, many of the things that you find rewarding, and I would challenge you, all of the things probably that you think are really valuable involve some level of sacrifice, right? If you're an athlete, you sacrifice time and energy and even peace of mind, or not peace of mind, but the peace and relaxation of just hanging out on the couch so that you can sacrifice yourself to get stronger, to get better, to get faster, right? To get better at your sport. If you are a parent, you sacrifice every day to give yourself to your kids and to give your kids a better life and to provide them with opportunities. If you are a spouse or a partner, you sacrifice because you care for and love your partner or your spouse. So we do this all the time. I think we just need to think about it in terms of what we can do individually and as a society to make this COVID-19 situation better, to make quarantining better, to make this an easier process for all of us to deal with. And specifically, I want us to think about what quarantining, social distancing, what all of this is really for. There's a lot of information out there online, and there are a ton of opinions out there online, and some of them from folks that are not necessarily too educated on the subject. Understand, if you don't already, that what we're doing right now is about sacrifice. And it's about sacrifice for the greater good. So it's not a sacrifice for self, just for the sake of self-punishment or to make life difficult for ourselves. It's not, let me give you guys a better view here. It's not about, sacrificing your liberty or your freedom for no reason. Yes, it's a sacrifice. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's challenging. but it's about doing that for the greater good. So I have a vested interest in this. I am somebody who had a heart and double lung transplant 17 years ago. So I am immunocompromised, which means my immune system does not work as well as the average person. And so I have a vested interest in this because part of what we're doing right now in terms of social distancing is actually to protect people like me. So I'm absolutely biased on this. Having said that, this is what makes the most sense, right? The reason we are doing this is so that more people don't catch this infection and don't catch it quickly, so that our hospitals are not overwhelmed. We're doing this so that people who are already chronically ill, people who may be undergoing cancer treatments or be dealing with cancer, people who suffer from autoimmune diseases, people who are elderly, people who are very, very young, anybody who doesn't have a very healthy, robust immune system does not catch this, because for those people, this infection can be incredibly dangerous. And we are already seeing the number of deaths skyrocket across the world. There's no question that this virus can kill people. And what I hear a lot of people saying, though, is, look, it's not that deadly. And for a healthy person, it's probably not that high a risk. Many people have gotten it and recovered without many symptoms at all. So what's the big deal? And they have a point, right? If you're young and healthy and fit, the chances of this virus causing you any long-term damage are very, very, very small. Absolutely. Here's the problem. Anybody can be a carrier. And most of us who will get this and carry it will carry it to other people before we have any idea that we're sick, because the incubation period for the illness is quite long. And so what people have found, doctors, medical professionals have found, is that people are usually not showing symptoms until several days after they've already been infected, which means if you're out in the world going about your daily business like we all do every day, the chances are good that you're going to spread that to many other people before you even know you're sick. So it's not even that you would do this intentionally or that you would do it in some sort of malicious way. It's just that you don't even know. You think you're fine. In some cases, you think you're fine the entire time and don't even know you've been ill unless you got tested. But the illness that you spread, while maybe not difficult for you, can cause great problems for somebody else. And so that's really why we're doing all of this. And it's hard. It's hard because it's causing us great personal pain in the form of the economy, right? When the economy shuts down like it is right now, it's hard for everybody. Small business owners are suffering big time. Major corporations are also suffering because they're laying off employees, which means the average person is out there suffering as well. Our costs are not decreasing all that much, but our income in many cases has been cut in half or even cut to zero. So this is major, major ramifications at a personal level, not to mention all of the ramifications it has in your personal life and just your everyday life out there, how you go about your business. It's difficult to be stuck inside. Look, we have 3 young kids. This is an incredibly inconvenient situation, right? We have 3 kids, 11, 8, and 3. They do not do well being cooped up inside all day. They have tons of energy that they don't know what to do with, right? They can't go see their friends, which drives them crazy, which then in turn drives us crazy. And so it's hard. I run a small business. My business has suffered dramatically because of this. I make most of my revenue through face-to-face live conferences where I speak. None of those events are happening right now. So please understand that when I make these suggestions, I don't say it lightly, and I don't say it without the knowledge that this has very real and significant pain for all of us. Making this decision to shut things down, to close businesses, to ask us all to self-isolate or to socially distance has major ramifications, and we're all going to suffer because of it. The question is the suffering worth it? That's what we have to decide. Is the suffering worth it? I believe that it is. And so if you believe that it is, it allows you to endure much more easily. Suffering actually comes from the word for endurance. That's really what it means. And so to suffer something doesn't necessarily have to mean unbearable pain, which is what most of us associate in our brains with that word. But instead it means enduring something. And if you are enduring something because it is valuable to you, because it matters to you, because you believe it has a greater purpose or a greater good, then it becomes much easier to do. If you haven't already done it, make sure you read Viktor Frankl's incredible book about his time spent in prison camps during the Holocaust. He writes this incredible book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, he talks about how and why certain people in the prison camps survived mentally and emotionally, not just physically, that time, and others survived it physically but never really went on to live a life. They were completely mentally and emotionally destroyed by the experience, which is completely justifiable, right? Completely understandable. But Frankl understood that one of the characteristics of the people who survived and were able to thrive after their experience was that they were able to assign meaning to what they had experienced. They were able to understand that while what they were doing was incredibly difficult, while surviving what they were doing was incredibly hard, it could have long-lasting purpose. If they could survive, they could build a life again. If they could survive, they could tell their story. If they could survive, they could share what had happened in the hopes that it would never happen again. And those people who were able to find meaning in what they were doing began to see it as a sacrifice worth making instead of just senseless pain. And we all need to be thinking in the same way right now. You can sit in your house and mope in the corner and drink yourself into a stupor or veg out on social media or Netflix and chill for the next month or 2 months or however long this thing is going to last. And everybody will get it. Everybody will understand. You're entitled to do that. But what will happen if you do that is that you will suffer pain needlessly. You will not suffer with a positive consequence at the end or with some sort of meaning. You'll just go through suffering. Here's the thing. We're going to feel the pain one way or the other. We've got to go through this one way or the other. The question just is, are you going to be able to seek and find meaning and purpose through this challenge or not? And that's largely up to you. A lot of us sit around waiting to find our purpose, to find meaning in difficult times. Truth of the matter is we assign meaning. We assign purpose. That's what we do as human beings. We're the only creatures on the planet that do that. We're the only ones who try and figure out what something means, figure out why we're doing what we're doing. So if you want to deal with this situation in a more productive way, the first thing that you can do is to understand that the sacrifice that you are making is for the benefit of the society as a whole and for specifically other people who have compromised immune systems or who would otherwise maybe have complications from this illness. If you're one of those people, it's easy. If you live with one of those people, it's easy. But if you're not, it's very, very tempting to think, what's the point of all this? Why can't I just go back to work? What's the big deal? And this being forced to stay home or being laid off or not being allowed to work can build incredible resentment because you feel like you're going through all this pain and there's no point. So what I'm challenging you to do is not to say this isn't painful. It's not to ignore what's happening. It's not to pretend like it's okay when it's not. It is absolutely to acknowledge that it's hard and then to say, can I draw meaning from this difficult time? Instead of saying, I'm sitting here for no reason, can I remind myself I'm sitting here to protect the person down the street who's had a transplant, or my aunt who's going through cancer, or my grandmother who is elderly. I am doing this to protect them. All of a sudden, your suffering, your pain, your discomfort, your inconvenience starts to take on meaning. And when sacrifice takes on meaning, it starts to have a lot more value and it becomes easier to endure. So let's embrace the idea of sacrifice. Let's not think of it as a negative thing because it doesn't need to be negative. And instead, let's talk about how our sacrifice benefits other people. And if you're not tempted to be or inclined to be very selfless and you find that hard, think about how your sacrifice now can benefit you later. I read a fascinating article today about what's happening in the world as a whole right now. How you can see pictures from space and already see a reduction in pollution. How families are getting closer together because they're being forced to spend time together. There are positive benefits that are spinning off from this very hard time. Now, again, that's not to pretend that we would want this to happen so that we can have these positive consequences. It's not to pretend like it isn't still hard. But it's to say that if we choose to, we can find positivity and positive outcomes from a negative situation. We wouldn't necessarily trade one for the other if we had a choice, but we don't have a choice. So instead, can we choose to give meaning and assign meaning from this difficult situation? Can you figure out a way to make yourself better during this time? Can you use this time to take on the project you've always wanted to take on that you never had time for? Can you read that book you've always wanted to read? Can you clean your house or paint your house? Can you start a nonprofit? There will be companies and nonprofits and charities founded out of this challenging time. There is a laundry list of very successful companies that came out of the 2007 through 2009 economic crash. There are other big name companies that are still around today that came out of the Great Depression. So understand that every challenging time has opportunity to be had for the people that are looking for it, for the people who decide that this sacrifice can have meaning if I go out and find it and create it. So embrace the idea of sacrifice, but do it from the point of view of having sacrifice with a purpose, sacrifice with a mission. And if you do that, you will find reasons to sacrifice, and it'll make doing all of this a lot easier. Okay, number 2, and these two go hand in hand. Second thing I want us to think about is the E in SEO, and that's for empathy. We all need to work on our empathy. It is so easy to be self-centered and self-focused at a time like this, especially because we're socially isolated, right? We're seeing less of people we love every day. We're spending more time alone. If you live alone, you're spending an incredible amount of time alone right now, which is, I'm sure, very difficult. And so it's really easy to lose touch with other people and their concerns and what they're dealing with. And so if we're not careful, we can lose empathy. On the flip side, if we intentionally plug in and we really make an effort to reach out to people, we use social media for the good things that it can do, for allowing us to connect. And we can build our empathy. And when we build and exercise our empathy and our understanding, then again, we find more meaning in this difficult situation. So again, for those maybe who are unfamiliar or just not sure, we hear that word and we're like, what does that really mean? Look, empathy just means that you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You're able to see things from somebody else's perspective. It is not sympathy where we just feel sorry for somebody else. Empathy is where we actually relate to them. And one thing that I hope will come out of this situation is more empathy for all of us, because we're going to understand how alike we are. We're going to understand at the end of the day that no matter what neighborhood you live in, what car you drive, what part of the world you're from, or what your job title is, we're all pretty much the same. We are all suffering right now, to different degrees for sure, but we're all going through difficult times. The virus doesn't care about your wealth or your social status. The virus doesn't care about where you live or what country you're from. Although to be sure, some of us are fortunate to have better healthcare if we need it than many other places in the world. But my point is, we are all more alike than we are different. And hopefully that will build our empathy. Hopefully we will see other people suffering and understand that that could be us. And that while we're tempted, because we all are as human beings, to feel sorry for ourselves, we can be aware of the fact that other people are suffering out there too. And that maybe we can get out of ourselves a little bit and start to focus on how we can help others. And at a very basic level, we can do that by understanding that by staying at home, by enduring the frustration and discomfort and pent-up energy of staying inside, we are helping people. That you are quite likely saving lives by choosing to follow directives and staying inside. I don't know any other time in history where sitting on your couch might actually save somebody's life, but this is literally one of those times. This isn't hyper or overstating or just being motivational. It's the truth. So how do you connect empathy to what's going on right now? How can you have more empathy for the people that you live with and for others? Because when you do that, it will make this time easier to bear, and it will help you to assign meaning and purpose to this time. So that's S, that's O. Third, or S and E rather, third is O. And that's for optimism and opportunity. Now again, I think I've said it twice now, I'm gonna say it again. Everything I'm about to say does not negate the fact that this is hard, does not negate that it's real, does not negate that people are dying and that it is sad, and that if given the choice, we would not trade being in this for the good things that might come out of it. But that, again, is not our choice. Our choice is we are now in this situation. There's nothing we can do about that. But can we pull positivity from it? Can we manufacture positive outcomes from it? Can we choose to remain optimistic despite the negativity around us? Can we choose to see opportunity amidst all of the challenges? I think we can. But to do that, we need to be really intentional. We need to be focused. We need to choose to be optimistic and to look for opportunity. So first, optimism. How do we do that? Well, you curate what you're paying attention to. So I see people jumping in here, joining live all the time. Thanks. Glad to have you here. You are choosing to be optimistic right now, right? You are choosing to tune into optimism, positivity, personal growth, positive mindset. And so you are nurturing that in yourself. And by doing that, you're improving your optimism. And you're improving the likelihood that you can remain optimistic despite being surrounded by negativity. Because if you're not careful and you just turn on network news and you leave that on in the background all day long, you're going to be drowning in negativity. What people seem to misunderstand about this whole concept is they think that positive people just want to be polygamous, that we want to pretend like challenge isn't out there, that we want to pretend like life isn't hard, that we want to pretend like there isn't a massive virus out there killing thousands of people. That's exactly the wrong thing. Absolutely, we understand all of those things. And we're upset about that, and we care about that, and we're empathetic to that. And at the same time, we also understand that one of the other major problems that's going to come out of this time in lockdown and social distancing and all of the consequences of this illness are the massive mental and emotional health problems that are going to come from it. The people who are going to get down and discouraged, the people who are going to get seriously depressed, the people who are going to feel isolated and alone. And so we have to fight that just as hard as we fight the virus. And we do that by injecting optimism and positivity everywhere we can. You have to be super intentional about doing that. So that means plugging into positive news sources. That means listening to podcasts like this, and watching videos. It means talking to friends. It means intentionally reaching out to people. It means reading good books. Anything you can do to keep your mindset in a positive state. Not a denial, okay, but a positive state where we acknowledge the negativity, but at the same time, seek the positive and try and create positive. I'm sure I'm not alone in having seen lots of great stories out there of people doing amazing things that were spurred on to do them by this situation. People who are making meals and taking them to their neighbors for the first time. People are reaching out to friends and family members that they haven't talked to in forever. People that are learning technology like Zoom for the first time so that they can communicate with people that they care about. There are all kinds of ways that we can choose to foster optimism and seek opportunity. And that is the last O. There are going to be people who come out of this situation better than when they went in. There are going to be people who have gotten in better shape. There are people who will have learned a new skill. There are people who will have grown more positive. There are people who will have read great books. There are people who will have created and formed and nurtured new relationships. And there are also people who will come out worse. And I make no judgment on you either way, except to say that I believe probably 90% of how you come out of this is up to you. If you're unfortunate and you catch the virus and it has major negative consequence, there's probably nothing you can do about that. There may be some economic consequences that you don't control as well. But you can always control your mindset. You can always control the meaning you assign to what happens to you. And so from that perspective, you have control over part of the outcome here. And so you have to decide, do I want this time to make me bitter and angry and frustrated at all of the things that I have lost, at all of the things that have been taken away, at how all of this has negatively affected me? Because I can spend my days rehearsing that laundry list. I have one too. I can tell you about the clients I've lost. I can tell you about the money I've lost. I can tell you about how this is hard on my kids. I can tell you about how they're losing out on educational opportunities and losing out on sports activities. I can tell you all kinds of reasons why this is bad. And it's bad for everyone. But I would rather spend my time focusing on how I've learned to find good, how I've learned to find opportunities, how I've learned to foster and nurture my optimism despite what's going on. So I'll talk to you about creating virtual presentations, about turning this podcast into a video podcast as well, because I have the time to figure that out and do it now, about being able to reach out to more people and connect with more people on social media than ever before, about creating a new coaching program that's going to be launching soon to help more people, about finishing a book, about creating a virtual presentation platform so that I can deliver the same presentations that I used to do live virtually through technology like this. And I'm going to be able to reach more people from all around the world than I ever was before. I've talked about doing those things for years, and I didn't do them until I was pushed, until I was forced to do it by being in this situation. Most of the time, we are most innovative when it is most uncomfortable. We don't find solutions until there are problems. We don't create new innovations until we have a problem that we have to innovate around. And so while we wouldn't ask for this, this is a great opportunity to discover some of those things. How can you innovate? How can you capitalize on this time? How can you take advantage of whatever downtime has created for you, whether it's 8 hours a day or 2 hours a day, to do something new, to take on a new project? Or if you need this time just to catch up and to rest and to rebuild your strength and to get your nutrition on track and to take care of yourself, do that. This is not necessarily about I need to be super productive during this time either. But it is time for us to really reset. The biggest opportunity I think that has come from all of this is that we get to really evaluate what matters to us. We finally have the time and the quiet to really think about, am I on the right track? Am I living a life I'm proud of? Do I love my work? Or do I at least find meaning in it? Am I raising my kids the way I want to? Am I spending enough time with them? Am I nurturing my relationships? Am I the kind of friend, the kind of daughter, the kind of son, the kind of husband, the kind of wife, the kind of parent that I want to be? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, what a great time to get back on track. You have the time to sit and really think about what your goals are, to think about what you want to accomplish. What do you want this time to mean 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now? If you've got kids, what do you want them to remember about this time? Do you just want them to remember that they were out of school and they watched a lot of videos on their tablets? Or do you want them to remember the family game nights and the movie nights or the sing-alongs or doing TikToks together or the time they got to spend with their parents that really mattered? You get to decide that. Do you want to look back on this time and think about this is when you gained 15 pounds, sitting on the couch, eating garbage and watching movies? Or is this the time you got in great shape because you took advantage of all of the free exercise programs that are available out there on YouTube and other platforms? And you used your body weight and a towel, because that's all you need, to work out every day and get into great shape? Do you want this to be the time that you spent vegging out, or to be the time that you look back on and say, that's when I finally started my business, or that's when I got my nonprofit off the ground, or that's when I wrote my book, or that's when I, knit this blanket or created this whatever, learned how to cook. Time is a great, great resource. And for most of us, we have more of it now than we have ever had before. And if you don't, because you are an essential person, an essential worker, especially if you're a healthcare professional, then all we can say to you is thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do. Keep doing what you're doing. Know that we are appreciative and that we're thinking about you. And that we will work hard to make our sacrifice count and to make your sacrifice count. That we will be empathetic to you and to all of the people who are suffering the most from this time. And that we will work hard to foster optimism and opportunity so that when we can all get back to life, not back to normal because it's going to be different, but back to life, that we have created meaning and purpose from this time, that we've used it well, and that there are benefits that are going to come from it. A good friend of mine who does great things out in the world posted on social media the other day. She said, I sometimes feel guilty because I'm here at home and I'm healthy and I'm safe, and I'm talking so much about being positive and optimistic that I might sound tone deaf to somebody who's really suffering. And I reminded her that it is especially during the times of darkness that we all need light. It is especially during times that are difficult that we all need encouragement. And so that's what I'm going to keep trying to do on this platform. That's why I'm talking about positivity and optimism, not because I'm tone deaf, not because I don't get it, not because I think it's easy out there, but precisely because if it's hard for you right now, it's especially the time that you need to be reminded to work at remaining optimistic, to work at remaining positive, to work at looking for opportunities when it's so easy to see nothing but the problems. So use your SEO. Work on embracing this sacrifice. Assign it meaning and purpose so that you're not just stuck inside, but you are safe inside and you're doing it to protect other people. Practice your empathy. Imagine what it would be like right now to be a single mom who's a nurse, or to be a senior in a seniors complex who isn't able to see any visitors and who's afraid that one of the staff might accidentally bring them a virus that will kill them. Imagine what that must be like. It probably makes sitting on the couch and watching another episode of something on Netflix a little easier to bear. And finally, work on your optimism. Tune into this or whatever channel you use to feed your positivity and your optimism, and keep feeding that. One of my favorite speakers used to say, people think that motivation doesn't need to be repeated. People say, well, why do I need to be motivated every day? And he would say, well, you shower every day, right? It doesn't work to just be motivated once. It doesn't work to just watch one quick viral video or watch one positive movie or watch a comedy or tell some jokes or listen to this podcast and then think, okay, I'm good. I've got my armor on and I'm good for a while. We've got to keep feeding ourselves a steady stream of optimism and positivity, because if not, the other steady stream, which is surrounding us, will get inside our brain. And it'll be all too easy to get negative and to feel discouraged and to feel frustrated. I've done it more than once. I've made the mistake of going down the rabbit hole in Facebook or turning on Fox or CNN. And after 10 or 15 minutes, I can just feel my spirit being dragged down. So I'm not telling you to live in denial. We absolutely need to stay informed. But you don't need a constant stream of negative news going into your brain, especially right now. Because the people who are really hurting the most need the rest of us to lift their spirits and encourage them and keep them positive. So go out there and be optimistic. Look for opportunities. Yes, this is hard. No, we wouldn't voluntarily do this just because there might be some good things that come from it, but we're here. And so now the question is, can we pull the positive from it? I believe we can, but we have to be intentional and we have to work together. So if this is helpful to you, please do me a favor and share this wherever you're watching or seeing or listening to it right now. Let's get this message out to more people. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, you can find it on every platform. Just ask for Level Up Your Life. You can even ask your smart home speaker for it, and it will play it for you automatically. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments section of wherever you're watching this right now. Drop me a note or a comment. And if you have questions that I can help with, we're doing all of these episodes relatively quickly before they air. We're not pre-batching a bunch of episodes right now because things are changing really quickly, and I want to make sure that we're current and that I'm helping you in the best way I can with what I'm able to do. Ultimately, that's about building resilience so that we can handle the challenges that we're going to face. So I hope this was helpful. And until next time, remember, don't live every day like it's your last day. Just be alive every day.